Hey YouTube, what's going on? Today we have a direct comparison between the Wurkkos FC12 and the Thrunite BSS V5. Both of these are dual switch tactical style lights that use an 18650 battery. Both very comparable. So we're going to break down the different specifications on each light. We're going to look at the differences and I'll give you my thoughts along the way to help you decide which light you would prefer. So for the FC12, for weight, we're looking at 85 grams, and on the BSS V5, we're looking at 86 grams, and this is without battery. Now, as far as size, if you can see here, I'm going to match them up as close to the bottom as possible, and you'll see that they are almost exactly the same length. The only difference is that the very top part of the head there of the FC12 is just a little bit longer. I mean, very, very small amount, but that's because it's got a deeper reflector for that emitter that it's got in there. And as far as the diameter and the overall size, I mean, they are pretty much identical. When these are in your pocket, you can tell no difference whatsoever. So, I mean, these are exactly comparable in size. And another thing to consider is that the head, if I can get the focus here, there we go. If the head on the BSS V5 is threaded, and that's because you can actually thread in there either a red lens, or you could put on the serrated bezel that comes with this light. However, I will say that bezel is pretty aggressive. It's a bit more than what I like, and I'm a big fan of bezels, but it's too much in my opinion, so I don't usually use that bezel. However, with that bezel, it will not only make this light longer than the FC12, it will also change the pattern of the beam profile, so just a heads up on that. So size-wise, these are, in my opinion, as close as you can get. And again, they take the same exact battery. For the emitter, so this Wurkkos FC12, that is an SFT40 emitter down in there. And for the BSS V5, that is an SST70 emitter. And so you'll see with that Wurkkos FC12, it takes a deeper reflector to use that FC12 because it's intended to be a more long range use and high candela light. If you're not familiar, the SFT40 is a bit more of a throwy beam, but it's also got a really nice spill. I'll see if I can kind of catch it up close here. So as you can see, there's a really defined hot spot, but then it's got a ton of usable spill around it as well. So it's still a nice usable beam. It's not just like a direct thrower or anything like that. Whereas with the BSS V5 and that SST70, you can still see the hot spot there on turbo, but it's a lot more neutral and spread out, and you really tell the differences when you're looking at it outside. It's definitely different beam profiles. So in my opinion though, for a tactical style light, which is what both of these are marketed towards, and have direct access to turbo from the tail switches, all that different stuff, an SFT40 is the best emitter you can get, excuse me, on a tactical style light, because it's got, it allows it to have a high candela rating. Lumens aren't going to matter so much in this style of light because the purpose of the light is not necessarily to be a great EDC light overall. You can get that out of, plenty of other lights. The purpose of this is to be able to put as much beam intensity as into, let's say if there's an animal that you're needing to shine this in the face of, or if there's a person or whatever you need to shine this at to get away. These are used as defensive tools to be able to shine and run, basically. So, you want high candela on these. And the FC12 with that SFT40 has high candela, and it's also got just a perfect beam profile for this style of light, whereas the SST70, in my opinion, not so much. And also, I'll see if I can get this to show up here on camera. It's a very, very green beam. Whereas not so much at all. Yeah, I think you can kind of see the difference there. It's very, very noticeable in person, but this is, I mean, almost puke green, and this is just white. Okay. All right. So as far as lumen output on turbo, you get 2,676 lumens, and this is what's listed. This isn't necessarily what it's accurately putting out, but 2,676 lumens out of turbo on the Thrunite and 2,000 out of the Wurkkos. However, Candela on turbo, you're getting 16,200 Candela on turbo out of the Thrunite, 29,833 Candela on the Wurkkos. That is a major, major difference. And if you're going to use this in a police, military, security, self-defense, whatever that type of application you're using it for, you want high Candela. Not that the Thrunite can't be used. It's a great platform. However, the SFT40 blows away the SST70 emitter in this style of light, in my opinion, is what I'm getting at. So as far as if we're looking at a direct comparison between the emitters and the lights and their actual output and beam profiles, the Wurkkos smokes it. And then distance-wise, the Thrunite can throw with turbo a total of 255 listed meters, and the Wurkkos a total listed of 345 meters. So nearly 100 meters more, 90 meters more, yeah. So, and then as far as run times, so on turbo for the Thrunite, we're looking at a 2-minute turbo until step down, and this is what's listed, and then 2 hours after step downs, it'll have a total runtime. And then for the Wurkkos, 2-minute step down, and then 2.5 hours. So roughly the same there. I mean, realistically, if you were to actually test them, they probably come out to right around the same run times on turbo. Now, I always like to look at the medium mode because I say, you know, unless you're blasting somebody in the face with this purposely, most of the time, if you've got this on your person, you're using this in a medium mode. So how does that do? Well, on the Thrunite, that's 355 lumens, and that'll run for 4.5 hours. On the Wurkkos, 300 lumens, so just a little bit less, not enough to be really noticeable to the naked eye, but 7.5 hour runtime on medium. Significant difference there. And then as far as the eco mode, so this will be your moonlight, firefly mode, whatever you want to call it, I like as low of a moonlight mode as I can get. So on the Thrunite, 0.3 lumens, and on the Wurkkos, 1 lumen. I'll say that with the Wurkkos, that is significantly more when it comes to that much. But as you can see, it's still, that 1 lumen's very low. It's still a good amount. If it was any higher, I wouldn't be happy about it, but I think that they did just fine with 1 lumen. However, and you can still see that white versus green, but that 0.3 lumen is really low. So I'd say as far as having a moonlight mode, the Thrunite wins that by being able to come out at a lower output. However, if you saw on moonlight, it's got that weird thing there in the middle. I don't know what that's about. As far as the bodies, they both have the same aerospace grade 6061 aluminum type 3 anti-abrasive hard anodized finish. However, I will say, in my opinion, I'll try to get these a little bit closer to the camera here. Both are really nice, and like I said, same aluminum, but just the overall detail and the way that the finish looks, it looks cleaner, it looks better on the Thrunite. I like the Wurkkos. It looks great for the price. However, when I see this Thrunite in person, I mean, it just looks really, really good. It's got great aesthetics to it, feels good. The Wurkkos definitely looks and feels in person a little bit more budget. However, I mean, they are significant differences in prices. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, so as far as battery indicators, for the Thrunite, when you turn it on, it will give you this blue light, and that'll last a little bit. And that will tell you if you're anywhere between 100 to 21% battery. And then if it's red, you're between 20 to 11% battery, so you're pretty low. And for flashing red, you're between 10 to 1%. Basically, it needs to be charged immediately. And for the Wurkkos, you've got this large rubber button here that turns green. And that is green from 30 to 100%. And as you can see, that turned off right away. The Thrunite might actually stay on. That little light might stay on the entire time you have it on. But this turns off after a few seconds. But green 100 to 30, red 30 to 10, and flashing red under 10. Okay. As far as resistances, the Thrunite is listed for a 1.5 meter drop, and the Wurkkos is listed for a 1 meter drop. However, there's drop tests you can watch online that some people have done where it looks like they hold up the same. I think they're just about as durable as one as the other. As far as their resistances, though, for their IP ratings, so the Thrunite has an IPX8, and that X means that it wasn't rated or it's not able to handle for a certain specific test. So the IPX8 means that that X is not rated to be able to handle any dust protection. However, the 8 is the water rating. For the Wurkkos, it's an IP68. So they have the same water resistance ratings, but it's got a 6, so it does have some dust protection. But overall, about the same resistances. As far as the clips, they are almost exactly the same. I mean, you can see it's just that the Thrunite, that dips down just a little bit lower. However, other than that, I mean, they feel the same. They look almost the same. It's basically the same clip. So they're even there. As far as the tail switches go, and you may have already seen my recent video on the Wurkkos FC12, so you may already know my feelings on this, but I'll start with the Thrunite. So they both have a rubber mechanical switch in the back. And so this one does not really have much dead space. There's nothing protruding really. When you feel the back of the light, it feels pretty centralized, or it feels pretty well spread out in the light. Now, of course, there is a spring and tension in the middle, but you don't necessarily feel that when you press down on the light. So it's a good overall click is what I'm getting at, meaning if you're in a situation that's high adrenaline, you can easily get it from the side, you can get it from the middle, you can get it from any part of this button, and you have easy access to the turbo of the light, and it feels good, it feels clean. It's a great tail switch. They did a wonderful job with the tail switch. Now for the Wurkkos, again, we have a rubber mechanical switch here, but in the middle, you feel where it protrudes significantly right in the middle, and then it's just dead space all around. So it's just, as you can see, I'm pressing down on it, the light's not turning on. That means that and I can go like this, and I mean, it's right there. So you pretty much have to get it mostly centralized with your finger in order to get that light on. If you don't, and you end up clicking it from the side in a high adrenaline situation on accident or whatever, you're going to end up not getting that light on and have to move your finger and get it again. I think that the tail switch needs significantly improved on this light. However, one thing to consider is the price of the light. Not everything on it can be perfect. But in my opinion, I like a good tail switch on a tactical style light. So I'd really like them to improve that tail switch, but it is still usable. It's still fine. It's just not up anywhere near the standards of this Thrunite's tail switch. And then as far as the side switches go, on this Thrunite, as you can see, we have a small button here, and it feels like it's probably plastic, but as you can see, it's pretty mushy, and it can kind of go in one end or the other, so you can kind of actually push it in like that. So the more I've gotten used to the button, the more that I'm not a big fan of it. It takes quite a bit of travel distance because it's mushy to get it on. I really have to press into it to get it on. Now you're not really using that in tactical situations or self-defense or whatever. You're using that tail switch, which is great. But for the side switch, I just wish it wasn't mushy like that. The only thing I will say is it's not likely to go off in your pocket if that's a concern, because it's kind of mushy. But overall, though, I mean, it's still a nice looking button. You know, as far as if you're showing this to somebody, or if you just like the way your light looks, this Wurkkos button is a bit uglier, I guess. But as far as actual usability, it's a little bit mushy. It's not my favorite. If they would have went with a little metal button, that would have been perfect. Now on this Wurkkos, we have this large rubber button, and it feels really good to click. It's easy to find. It's easy to access. It's a good button. Again, not exactly aesthetically pleasing, but it's a good button. It works. It does the job. There's nothing overly special about it. So I'd say as far as the switches go, if I had to rate it, I would say for the tail switch, I'd give the Thrunite like a 4.5 out of 5. It's hard for me to rate it perfectly because I feel like there's always going to be something out there better. But for the Wurkkos, I'd say the tail switch is like a 2 out of 5. And then for the side switches, I'd say the Thrunite's probably a 3 out of 5. And I'd call the Wurkkos a 4 out of 5. So let's look at the user interfaces. And this is where they're really going to differ quite a bit. Because as so far, I mean, they've been pretty close as far as what you're getting out of these lights. I mean, we're looking at minuscule differences for the most part. Both of them absolutely have done the job. So it really comes down to, if you don't like the user interface on a light, you're probably not going to use it very often, or you're not going to want to. So for this Thrunite, your tail switch is a turbo only. It's completely separate to the side switch. So that means you can click it and get turbo, or you can hold it in to get momentary and release it. I love that. Not everybody might love that. I don't know. But for me, as far as, you know, if you're using this as a self-defense light, if you're using this in the military, police officer, whatever, the ability to just know that when you click that, you have turbo instantly. But you can also use the side switch if you want to go into just a normal mode. I think that's wonderful. So tail switch is completely separate. It's basically just considered a tactical tail switch. So if you don't think you're going to need to use the turbo, you're just going to run the light from the side switch pretty much all the time. So tail switch, turbo. Side switch, you turn it on. It's click on, click off, and then you hold it down to go between low, medium, high. So it's really simple. You can double click to go into turbo if you want from side switch, or you can 1, 2, 3 triple click to go into strobe. So no strobe from tail to my knowledge, and side switch does everything else. So really, really simple user interface, and it really seems to me like they designed the user interface to be as easy to access for a tactical light in those type of high adrenaline situations as possible. So for the Wurkkos, this one's a little bit different in that it's got 2 groups. So you can switch between the 2 groups. So it's got your regular mode, I think they call it an outdoor mode, or it's got a tactical mode. So you can switch between the 2, and those do different things. So let's look at the regular version first, your outdoor group. So your tail switch is your on and off. So that means if the light's not on, if you press that side switch, it's not turning on, it's not doing anything. You have to turn the light on via the tail switch. Additionally, you can hold it down for momentary. Okay? So you can also hold down the side switch and click the tail switch to access your eco mode. There's no other way to get into the eco mode. If you turn this light on and you switch between low, medium, and high, there's no way to get into eco mode. So you have to go from off, side switch, tail switch. Okay? You can also access turbo directly from your tail switch. So you do a half and a full. So basically you're double clicking, but you're not double clicking like that. You're doing a half click and a full click, and you can get direct access to turbo. So this is still a tactical light in its standard form because you have direct access to turbo, and you can also triple click to get in a strobe from the side switch, and then from there you can double click to access 3 different types of strobe modes, and then single click to get out. So the standard mode to me is still a very usable tactical style user interface. However, they did make another group called Tactical Group, where it's specifically intended to be just for tactical. So you can switch between that first group to the tactical group by turning it on and holding down the button for about 3 seconds, and it will flash. Okay, and that went into turbo, meaning you're now in tactical mode. So what this does is when you're in tactical mode, you can full click and it goes directly to turbo. So now, instead of having to do that double click with the light, you can just click it and you're immediately into turbo. So now it basically works the same way as the Thrunite did, whereas this is a full turbo. However, you can't, it's not separate for the tails or from the side switch. This still does nothing. So if you want to get into a different mode, you're turning on the turbo and then you turn it on, press the button, and that will switch you to medium. And you only got 2 modes, medium and turbo, which if you got in tactical mode, those are the only 2 modes you really need anyways. And then you can still access eco by doing the side switch and the tail switch, however. And then the differences here, especially before when we did that half full press, that's how we got into turbo. But now since we have turbo direct access from tail, once we do that, it takes us into our strobe mode. Okay. Okay, let's look at price. For the Thrunite, we're looking at $70 on Amazon and the Thrunite website. And for the Wurkkos, we're looking at $38 on Amazon and $26 on the Wurkkos website. So we do have a significant price difference. The Thrunite runs anywhere between 2 to 3 times the price of the Wurkkos. I don't necessarily think you're getting 2 to 3 times the value. I do think that if they were priced at exactly the same, I'd probably still go with the Thrunite just a little bit more because of the nicer finish, because of the tail switch. You know, I like the user interface on it just a little bit more. But overall, if these lights were within $10, I'd say, you know, like let's say the Thrunite was only $10 more than the Wurkkos, then it's really a toss-up. Because I think that these both have their trade-offs. I think that these are very, very close competitors. If I had to rate overall out of a 5, they'd probably both get somewhere around a 3.5 to 4 out of 5 for what they're doing. Neither of them fits that perfect 18650 tactical light for me. I'm still looking on the hunt for that, as well as for the 21700 version. However, you know, both of these do a lot of things well. I highly recommend purchasing both if you can. But either way, up to you. Just wanted to show you a comparison between the 2 lights if you were looking at purchasing one or the other. Let's go ahead and head to the beam shots now, and thanks for watching. Okay, and we're going to go into turbo now. And as you can see, it's got a much wider beam on it. It's a lot more spread out. You don't really have that focus hotspot quite as much. It's still really nice to use. It's great for you know, just an everyday carry application, but it may not necessarily be quite as useful as the FC12 in a tactical type scenario. Now I'm going to see if I can get both of these on with one hand here, with the Wurkkos on the left side and the Thrunite in the right. You can kind of see the beams there, and you see that hot spot of the Wurkkos. Thanks for watching. Alright guys, so we're outside now, and I'm going to turn on the Wurkkos FC12. Okay, and let's switch to some modes here. There's our turbo mode. And you can see the concentration of that beam. It does throw pretty well, but it's got a really nice spill to it. And as you can see, that's a lot of great output that you'd want to use in a tactical light. Okay. Now let's go to the Thrunite. So there's low, medium, high.